time for the call. Welcome to Negro Please. I'm your host, Dal Scott, co-host, Mr. Hollywood Huff, our producer, semi-extraordinaire, Quan the 5'9". Are you like really 5'7" and you're just trying to get 2 inches?
I'm actually 5'10" and a half.
Oh, okay.
The 5'9" is the 59th book in the Bible, which is James, which is my favorite book.
Gotcha.
Wow.
That's, right.
I never knew that.
I'm impressed.
And it used to be Quan 5966 because my pager code was 5966 because that spells Quan on the page.
Sure. I'm glad to see you updated with the times.
Yes.
Do you guys really think that Donald Trump was smart enough to know that Juneteenth is June 19th and that Tulsa, Oklahoma was Black Wall Street?
If he didn't know, somebody told him.
So
my theory, I just talked to my boy, and I'll let you guys talk.
No, please.
I think he wants out.
Oh, I agree with you.
I think he wants
does,
out.
I don't think he wants.
He doesn't want 4 more years.
He does not. So, you know, I do poker tournaments around the world, and we were at a poker tournament in Bahamas a couple years ago, and you know the guys that do the TV work and lighting and stuff, they're all gig workers. They travel all around to wherever.
Yeah.
And one of the guys who was running the boom for our television broadcast says that he was at whatever hotel Trump was at the night that he won the election. He said, if you could have seen Trump's face when they told him he was going to win the election, he's like, there's no doubt in his mind that Trump didn't think he was going to win. Like, he was so shocked. He was like, and you could tell he didn't, like, he was like, no, I don't really want this.
Everybody I talked to, and this was rumored, but even like people who I talked to, like, are legit involved in, like, you know, these different political parties and stuff, they all said that everybody in politics, not just people who didn't want Trump to win, but people who were like in his campaign, nobody believed he had a shot to win.
Right.
And they said that, like, so he, like, the first 2 years of presidency, he just repeatedly fired everybody. Right. But the first wave of people who got fired, they weren't fired because they sucked. They were fired because there was a thought of, oh my goodness, I have to actually bring in people to do something now. That's why the first group was fired, because they were just there to
because
help,
he wasn't
to help, to keep the wheels moving, rolling. You know,
I have this. So I learned about Juneteenth when I was, I don't know, 13, 14, 15 years old.
Yeah,
it wasn't something we were taught in high school. Radio station in Minneapolis, KMOJ, was having a Juneteenth celebration.
Yeah.
I actually, until about 12 years ago, I thought Juneteenth was June 13th. I thought it was the same day as my brother's birthday.
Yeah.
And I think because they were celebrating it on the weekend that year, and it just happened to be like my brother's birthday, so that's why. I didn't know about Black Wall Street until about 7 years ago, 5 to 7 years ago.
Yeah. And
I wouldn't have known it then, but somebody was telling me that the Gap Band song "You Dropped a Bomb on Me" is about Black Wall Street. Black Wall Street was the Greenwood section of Tulsa, Oklahoma, the neighborhood, and the Gap Band is Greenwood, is their neighborhood. Archer and Pine were the streets they lived on. So, so I actually had to Google that and find that out, and I was like, then I learned about Black Wall Street. Yeah. I would bet 75% of Black people in America don't know about Black Wall Street until now.
Yeah,
so that's why I don't think he's smart enough to know that. Like,
a lot of people don't know about it. Most people didn't find out about it until the Watchmen series came out and did some of that. I think that like gave half the people who know about it now found out when the Watchmen series came on HBO. Before that, it was probably even in the past, I'll say 5 or 6 years, even less than that, because there has kind of been a buzz about it. I was fortunate enough to be, I took a college class around, it was actually 1999, the fall of 99. I took a Black History course, and our instructor gave us, we were learning about things in Black history that everybody in the classroom was like, man, you just made that up. And then he would give us all this documentation to prove it, because in elementary school, middle school, high school, none of us ever learned about these things. We hadn't heard about them. So it was one of the things I learned. I didn't realize the extent of it, or I didn't fully grasp the extent of it until recently, when I kind of started doing my own research. Plus, back then I was like 19, 20 years old. That mind that I had was like learning these things to know history. And now I'm kind of teaching other people, so I have to know like all the details about it. And there's a lot of things about Black history that they don't talk about right here in America. You know what I mean?
There's a whole lot of
black why is that not taught?
Like we're just finding out this week about Central Park in New York.
Right.
Like we didn't know that was a black community that they just bulldozed over and tore down so they could build Central.
Exactly.
I didn't know that until this week.
Right.
There's a lot of stuff. So a friend of mine asked me, and he's neither here nor there on these Confederate statues and the renaming of streets and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And he asked me this, and I sent you the message last night. And I'm curious what other people think. So he says, like he said, he's indifferent about whether the statues stay or don't go. He doesn't really care.
Mm-hmm.
But he's like, instead of tearing down the statues and renaming streets and buying all street signs and all that stuff, like, couldn't they use that money for something else? Like maybe building a boys and girls center in, a community that needs one or something like that. My thought process on this is that I don't know what it costs to tear down a statue and rename streets. I mean, I don't know how expensive that is.
Tell the police to get out the way and let black people do it. It'll be free.
Fair enough. The other thing, though, and I thought about this, and this is, when I walk by a statue or something, 95% of the time, I don't pay any attention. Unless somebody points something out to me.
Yeah.
And then if I do walk by a statue,
mm-hmm.
unless it's Robert E. Lee or Jefferson Davis, I have no idea who these Confederate guys are. I have no clue. And I guess so if I ask the question, being completely ignorant about this person, right?
Right.
And I ask this question, what did this person do to deserve a statue?
Yeah.
And you tell me, oh, they owned 3,000 slaves and this amount of land, and they did this, this, and this.
Right.
I would probably be like, yeah, no, we don't need that statue.
Yeah.
But if you told me this guy had 3,000 slaves, and then after the Civil War, he saved 3,000 babies from dying in a fire or something like that, I could be like, okay, maybe I get that.
But here's the thing, though. I guarantee you, none of those people that owned slaves were saving babies after the war. This is my beef with it, which is, to a person who doesn't know, you just kind of walk by a statue and it's a statue, whatever. You know what I mean? Like it's really not a big deal. But to the people who do know, it's torture.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, and that's why to me, like, these statues need to come down. The Confederacy lasted what, 4 years? And during that time, they were basically traitors to America. Like,
100%.
The Union was united, right? And then they left the Union. Like, they weren't kicked out. They left, right?
Right.
So they're traitors to the country. Then they had a war where they killed Americans. And basically America took back those states from General Lee, right?
Right.
He surrendered. They lost. 4 years is all that lasted.
Yeah,
4 whole years. You know what I mean?
I definitely don't see, like, how do you have a statue of Lee? Like, be proud of that because he surrendered, though, right?
Right.
Like, so I always equate statues to this, though, right? We don't have, who won the NBA championship last year?
Man, I can't remember.
Like it's
the Toronto Raptors.
Oh, the Raptors.
Yeah,
right. And they beat the Golden State,
Warriors.
right?
They beat the Warriors.
The Warriors don't get a trophy for second place.
Correct.
Do they? They don't get rings in the NBA. Whoever loses,
they get a flag.
They get a banner. But their banner isn't. It's the division championship. It doesn't say
conference championship.
Right.
Conference championship. They got that. They got that for what they won before they lost.
Right,
yeah.
Right. It doesn't say, you don't get a banner that says you lost in the finals.
Right.
You get a banner for what you did up until the finals. And I feel like that's what those statues are, right? You don't give losers a prize. What we do nowadays, we give participation trophies, right?
Right.
So if you're not going to give the guys who are actually, no, I don't think you don't get second place trophies.
No.
I don't.
Well, here's the thing, like, it's not like those trophies just went up right after the war to say, hey, you guys tried, good luck. Like, it was literally years after the war. And I can't remember what the name of this group was, but it was like Daughters of the Confederacy or the Confederate Rebel Daughters. It was something like that, where it was basically, it started off with this group of women where they went and basically like started to petition to all these like lawmakers and different people to have these Confederate generals and Confederate like leaders and stuff, like basically like memorialized.
Right.
And what that was the people who were in the Confederacy. You're talking like between 1861 and 1865. A lot of those people were still alive like in 1910 and 1920, right? But they're dying off. And what they wanted to do was teach all these young people about what they stood for and what they believed and why they did it. They were basically like, yeah, we lost the war, but here's why. Like it was a whole movement to save face. And in that, they convinced all these lawmakers and all these people to allow these statues and history books and all these things to be created with basically like this revisionist version of their side of the story.
So like I saw somebody else made a comment, and I don't remember who it was, and I think it's a good idea. I don't think you can erase them from history, right? Because they are a part of history, good or bad. Right. I mean, we can't erase Hitler from history, like you can't do that.
Right.
But I think these people belong in museums, right? So if you want to go learn about them, you can. They don't need to be standing out forefront.
I think
they don't need to have the state capitol building that governs over a state that is 50% black being reminded that this state was started by people who hated black people and feel like they should all be enslaved.
I think that's a huge thing, and that's a problem with America. We only want to talk about the pretty parts.
Right.
And that's a lot of black people, and even my personal beef with the whole Confederacy is they try to make that to be one of the pretty parts, and it's not. So they want to talk about that, but they don't want to talk about the depths of slavery. Like from the Confederate standpoint, the reason why slaves were singing, because that made the job easy.
Right.
Like there's no amount of singing that's going to make picking cotton in 100-degree humid weather 16 hours a day easy. Like, I mean, it's their whole rhetoric, the way that they talk about this whole thing is just, it's from this standpoint of like, we didn't really do anything bad. We just didn't want, the big hand of the government telling us what we can and can't do.
Right.
And the only thing the government was really telling them they couldn't do was own slaves anymore. And so, I mean, granted, yeah, there were other underlying things, but let's be real. That's what the whole thing was about. They didn't want to give up slaves. Why? Because money.
Right.
Period. So, yeah, they should have a spot in the museum. Like everything that happened in this country in some way, shape, or form should be in history books and museums. We have to know about the past, right?
But the history should be told truthfully, right?
Exactly.
The history has to be told truthfully.
Yes.
Can we all agree there are things in life you shouldn't do? You shouldn't challenge a professional fighter to a fight.
If you're not a professional fighter.
Right.
Yes.
If you're not a professional fighter. You don't challenge other professional fighters to a fight. You don't, I don't know, there's a lot of things you should not do, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of the things you should not do is be Candace Owens right now.
Yeah.
Because this is her. She challenges Dave Chappelle to call her a rotten bitch to her face. First of all, she's lost every debate she's ever been in against anybody. Joe Rogan crucified her on his show. This is just her publicity stunt for her, right?
Yeah.
She does not really want to go face to face with Dave Chappelle.
Yeah.
This guy makes a living embarrassing people, right?
Yeah.
You don't, and she makes a living embarrassing herself. So it's a bad combination. However, if this was a $59 pay-per-view event, I would be I wouldn't even bootleg it. I would not pirate it. I would pay the $59. And then here's what they should do too, right? If Dave Chappelle wins, they donate the money to the NAACP. And if she wins, she can pick her white supremacist organization to donate the money to, or give it to Donald Trump, who, by the way, in 2016, Candace Owens was the CEO of Degree 180, and she wrote an article called "Does Donald Trump Have a Small Dick?" where she concluded that Donald Trump had a dick the size of an infant child. But this is the person y'all want to listen to.
I tell anybody that tries to give her any amount of credit, just look her up. Just go do you don't even have to dig deep. Just the public information for the past like 5 or 6 years. Just find out where she stood 5 or 6 years ago and where she stands now.
Where she stood 2 years ago. It wasn't
exactly,
even 5 or
right.
6 years ago. Like it was 18 months ago.
Yeah.
She was
right.
Occupy. She was at Occupy or Degree 180 until 18 months ago, and then all of a sudden she wanted to flip. Like this is like, I'm proud of her though because she's making money off of white folks and laughing in their faces, right? Like she doesn't believe the stuff that she spits out. All right, that's all the time I really want to spend on her. But I just thought it's funny that she challenged Dave Chappelle. Don't do that. So I got a couple things. I think people need to understand when we only do this show once a week because there's a lot of research that we have to do to this show.
Yeah.
Right. Like this Candace Owens thing. There's no research on that. That's just a statement, right? And we're going to talk later about a couple things that there's not really a lot of. Like we can find a couple articles, and it'll take us 20 minutes to find all the information.
Yeah.
But then there are things like Rayshard Brooks being shot in Atlanta. So Steve and I will send messages back and forth and converse, send news articles back and forth all week long about these before we discuss them, right? Because we want to make sure that we have the most accurate information, right? We're not going to be like the extreme left sites and the extreme right sites and just throw stuff out there for the sake of throwing stuff out there.
Right.
We try to have as much information as possible. So when the Rayshard Brooks first came out, my first thought was, the first thing we heard was he was shot in the back. I was like, no, this is unjustified shooting. Then we heard, well, he struggled with the cops. He resisted arrest. He got the cops taser. He turned to shoot the cop with the taser, then the cop shot him 3 times. And I was like, okay, maybe we got some justification there. So I had to go and do some research. Do you know that taser is actually an acronym? Did you guys know that?
Yeah. I don't remember the acronym, but
it's actually funny because it is, I have it right here. It is Tom Swift and his electric rifle. That's what, which is a book character, and the guy who created the taser named it after this book character. It's an acronym for Tom A. Swift Electronic Rifle. That's what taser stands for.
Yeah.
It's a character out of a book called Tom Swift, or under the pseudonym. It was written by Stratemeyer Syndicate under the pseudonym Victor Appleton. It was created by a guy from NASA. Oh, the name of the book is Tom Swift and His Electric Rifle. So this is Tom A. Swift. Okay. So I had to do some research. There's this company called Axon, AXON. They make this. So I'm looking at their page. They say they make tasers for over 18,000 police departments.
Mm-hmm.
There are 17,965 or something like that police departments in the United States.
Yeah.
17,985. So they're pretty much the industry standard for tasers.
Right.
All right. They have 3 different versions of tasers. Couple things that I find interesting. So you can buy one of their tasers as a civilian, but it's only good for 5 feet.
Yeah, tasers. Yeah, they literally have a cord that comes out, so it only goes so far.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but the police ones and the military ones are 10 feet.
Okay.
Okay. So we're talking about a guy who was drunk, right?
Right.
Who was obviously drunk. There are people who said that the police should have taken him home. I 100% disagree with that. If you are caught for a DUI, you go to jail.
Yeah.
There's not, we should just take him home. No, he got lucky that he didn't kill somebody else while driving in the car, right?
Yeah.
And so,
and he was attempting to do the right thing by pulling over and going and just trying to sleep it off.
No, he fell asleep
in the drive-thru.
He fell asleep in the drive-thru.
He fell asleep in the drive-thru, but there was an argument of him. He thought he parked his car somewhere, but he was in the drive-thru and fell asleep. Right. So
that was one of his 10 stories.
So whether he did that or he just fell asleep, like either way, if you leave a party and you get in the car and you've been drinking and you're on the highway and you realize, I've had too much to drink, and you pull over, if your key is in the ignition, you can still get a DUI.
Right.
And that's where I'm going with that.
Right. You should be arrested for that.
Right. So when the police are called on him for sleeping in the car and they show up and he's drunk, and you can see in the video, dude was drunk. Like, you know what I mean? They're supposed to take him to jail.
Right.
Right? Go ahead. Because that's
right.
So far, everything is what's supposed to happen. Right.
He should go to jail for this. He does resist. We see that in the video. I want to make this very, very clear. If you point a gun at a police officer, you should be shot, in my opinion. If you point a gun at me, I'm going to shoot you. If you point a gun at a gun at a police officer, you should get shot.
Yeah.
He doesn't. we've had this discussion. He doesn't have time to wait and see if you're going to shoot him or not. Like that. I don't care if you're white, black, Latino, Asian. If you point a gun at a police officer,
if you point a gun at somebody and they got a gun,
you should get shot.
It's shootout time.
Right.
You've engaged in a duel.
Right. So the reason the police use tasers is because they're non-lethal.
In most cases, yes.
Yes.
Right.
There are extreme cases where...
For the sake of argument, it's possible to die from the voltage, but
it's very
rare, very unlikely, and that's the point of it.
Right. So, if you're a police officer and you are trained on this taser, you know you have 10 feet, right? If it's just you and the victim, or you and the perpetrator, right?
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, you have a right to shoot him there. And the reason is because you don't know what's going to happen after you've been incapacitated.
Yeah,
right?
if he turns and tases you,
you don't know what happens.
Now you're unconscious, or you're immobilized.
Right. He can come take your gun, shoot you, whatever, beat you with your baton,
right.
beat you up, whatever.
Anything can happen.
Right. I get that. And this is why everything isn't a blanket answer to me.
Right.
But if you're there with 2 other cops,
right,
you know that this guy has to be within 10 feet of you to hit the taser. I'm willing to bet that the drunk guy doesn't know that he only has 10 feet. That he has to be within that.
I'm willing to bet that he doesn't know that he really only has 1 shot with that taser either.
Well, this company that makes the taser, they do have.
He gets 2 shots.
Yeah, there's a taser 7 that they make that allows you 2 shots.
Yeah.
So if there are multiple police officers here, right? And the other thing, but to get police have body armor on.
Yeah.
So to get a clear shot on a cop in body armor, your best bet is that the drunk guy gets lucky and hits him in the leg, right? Because that's his best shot at a clear shot. Like,
right.
He's not, if he hits him in the chest.
And he has to be close to the end of that 10-foot range to do that too,
right.
Because the spread of it is only so far as so many feet.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So
the closer you are,
the closer the hooks get you. You know what I mean? So yeah.
With all of that said, I don't believe as a police officer you can be in fear of your life here, right? This is your weapon. You should know everything about this weapon, right? At the worst case scenario for you, he does get off a shot and hits you in your leg, right? But now there are 2 other police officers there, and this guy has no weapon anymore.
Right.
And he's drunk. I
think that's the thing that a lot of people don't see, because there are a lot of people who are like, well, he grabbed the cop's taser. Yeah, he's supposed to get shot. Like you just said, a one-on-one situation, completely different. But you're looking at, there are multiple police here on the scene. And at the time, he's fleeing. Hence, he has 3 bullets in his back. Not his side, not the front of him. He's running away. So at some point, you have to look at this cop is the speed at which this cop draws the weapon. He can't. I don't even think that he can even know that he has the taser already.
Right. Because
all 3 of them, or it's 2 cops and the guy on the ground, and you kind of see the guy getting up, and then he's shot like almost instantly. Like, how does he know he has that taser that fast? He may have legitimately taken the taser from the cop, right? But I don't think that cop knew that until after he was shot.
So if you break into my house, I grab my gun and you are fleeing, I can't shoot you.
Right.
I don't. And again, this is one of those statements where I think there are times when a cop should be able to shoot somebody who's fleeing, but this isn't one of those times.
Right.
If that cop got called to Wendy's because that guy had killed 3 people inside of Wendy's,
right,
and even though, let's say the guy drops the gun in the store,
yeah,
and now the guy's running away and he's going to where other people are, you already know this guy committed 3 murders or shot 3 people.
Yeah,
you have no idea what that guy's potential is when he gets to other people.
Right.
I think you can shoot him there, right?
Okay.
Because because public safety becomes a bigger issue. Right. Because now this guy may have a gun that you didn't see. Like,
that's the thing. Yeah,
there's a lot of things.
It's completely different when you're chasing the guy who just robbed the bank, or you're chasing the guy who just killed somebody.
Right.
When you're literally sitting there talking to this guy for 3 or 4 minutes, and you see he's obviously just drunk.
Right.
You know what I mean? And he clearly doesn't even know where he's at for the most part. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're literally asking him questions repeatedly You know what I'm saying? Just, is that a fact? Is that a fact? Is that true? You know what I mean?
Troy is chiming in here because he likes to believe there's no racism. Over 500 taser deaths. Tasers are lethal. Yes, but there are 500 taser deaths since 1993.
Right.
How many police deaths have there been with firearms since 1993?
Right.
Go look that up. So, like, the police just started carrying these in 1993. They haven't had these their entire. So, you're talking about police shooting people who aren't wearing body armor.
Right.
You know, where these, and there have actually been 15 cases where somebody's actually caught on fire from the taser, but then you find out it's because they have something on their clothing, cologne, or
there was a guy who not too long ago, I believe he got tased, and I still don't even know how this happened. He got tased and he had a gun in his pocket, and somehow when he got tased and hit the ground, the gun went off.
Right.
I don't know if the taser activated I don't know if it did something to the gun, which is bizarre to me, or if it went off because he hit the ground. But he hits the ground and literally 4 or 5 shots go off.
Right.
You know what I mean? After the guy hits the ground. And because they were like, oh, he got tased and shot, because the other police are thinking that the guy is shooting, and they start shooting him after the first cop tased him. So yeah, there's some bizarre, weird things that happen with the taser, but the point is that the taser is less lethal than a firearm.
See, I'm gonna get ignorant right here, right? Because Troy's commenting, Lil Wayne says there's no such thing as racism.
So
we got Lil Wayne, Candace Owens, C.J. Pearson, and C.J. Pearson's actually backed off his statements, right? And what are the White brothers?
Yeah, whatever country dude's name is.
Okay.
And Morgan Freeman.
No, Morgan Freeman
is different, yeah.
But if you read the whole context of the quote,
you just take out of context, right. But yeah.
So 5 fucking black people out of the 42 million black people in this country tell you that there's no fucking racism, but you won't listen to the other 42 million. That's the dumbest shit I have ever heard in my life.
Exactly. I literally just had this conversation with somebody earlier today talking about this exact same thing. Why is it that when one black celebrity comes out and says, oh, racism doesn't exist, like...
Hold real quick. Troy, Google Jane Elliott.
Yeah, exactly.
All right? I found the one white person who does, but like, she teaches a whole course on racism. Right. She embarrasses the shit out of everybody she's ever talked to on Fox News and any other syndicated. She's challenged Candace Owens to a debate, and Candace Owens won't debate her because Jane Elliott never loses because she knows her shit, and she's white. Go look at her before you start telling me that Lil Wayne. And what did Lil Ray? He didn't say there was no racism. Read the whole quote. Watch the interview. And he was specifically talking about one white officer.
Yeah.
When he was a child, when 3 black officers walked over him.
Right. And tell me this. How is Lil Wayne? How can you?
I hate ignorant ass people.
But how can you compare Lil Wayne to anybody when he's been a celebrity since he was 14 years old? Of course, in Lil Wayne's world, there is no racism because he stands on a stage in front of the most mixed audiences probably anybody's ever seen for pretty much his whole life. From the time he was able to walk outside, he's been on a stage. A little bit later than that, of course. Right. I think he was 13, 14 years old when he got popular. But
there's another thing. This is like, I'm going off on Troy here, right?
That's okay.
Because he says Morgan Freeman and Denzel Washington said that there's no proof, that there's no racism. That quote from Denzel that's going around on the meme, Denzel never said that. Try Google, you would figure it out. All right? And what's my proof that there is racism? The other day I was at fucking AM PM. I'm pumping gas. And a lady asked me why I have to stay in this country and why I don't go back to where I belong. I'm the 5th generation of my family to be born in fucking America. The 5th generation. My son is the 6th. I am where I belong.
I want to know this from him. Is this a white guy?
Yes, of course it is.
Right. I just didn't want to assume. But why do white people, and not all white people, but people like this, why are you trying so hard to prove that racism doesn't exist?
Because it makes them feel better about themselves and their racist tendencies. That's why.
That's what's so funny to me.
It makes them feel better about closing their eyes and ignoring what's happening to non-white people. If you tell yourself that it doesn't exist, you feel better. And when people bring up these stats, oh, there were 700 more people, white people killed than black people by police last year. There are 5.5 times more white people in this country than black people. And according to the FBI, the keeper of all crime statistics, the percentage of white people and black people that commit crime is dead even. So if you're telling me that it's equal between blacks and whites, then 5 times more white people should be murdered by cops than black people.
Exactly.
But it's not.
And that's if all things are even, because even those stats, they don't take into account how many of those crimes are because a black person was coerced into something, or due to, or were found guilty because they pled guilty because they were told, look, you're facing 25 years. You can just say you did this and you'll get 10. See, our justice system is screwed all the way around. So even when we look at the stats of what we have are skewed. That's not even including all the stats that we can't even prove shouldn't even exist.
And Troy's the same what I'm saying? And Troy's the same person that'll say, well, what about black on black crime? When we did a whole show, 4 weeks ago, about crime stats?
Yeah.
More white people murder white people every year than black people are actually murdered in this country.
Yeah.
But nobody ever says white on white crime, right? You have to point it to race. And
real quick, you got to go back to your stat of there's more white people in America. So if you're going to use that for that, you have to use it for this.
But no, exactly. That's my point, though, right? Yeah. So, like, to say that black people kill black people more than white people, it's not. It's false.
Right. Because we never look at the stat. We never look at the side of how many white people are killing white people when a white person kills someone. Like when there's a mass shooting, right? And of course, it's a white person. Nobody ever brings up, oh, white on white crime. Look at white people doing this all the time.
And not, of course, because it hasn't always been white people. That's the stigma the media will send out, that it's only white people that have done that. There's been black people that have had mass shootings.
But that's and see, that is my exact point right there. When a white person kills a black person, mostly a cop, and we talk about the injustice of it, right? Then they bring up, well, black people kill black people too. And it's like, but that's irrelevant, just as it's irrelevant that white people kill white people.
Right.
But it's only brought up to combat what you're actually talking about, because there is no combat for this injustice that's happening.
It's what they call the red herring, right?
Right.
Theory. Like, you change the subject so you can make yourself feel better about the subject.
Right. You change the topic to basically like sway narrative. The argument. Right. Yeah.
But your argument has nothing to do with the actual argument that's going on.
You try to bring up a stat that's basically irrelevant so that you can win an argument. And I've recently started making videos. I literally made a video. It's 20 minutes. That one's not 20 minutes. I think it's like 12 minutes long, talking about the black on black crime stat. And I explain the stats and why people bring them up. You've never heard the media. There's nowhere you ever hear, oh, Hispanic on Hispanic crime or white on white crime. Like, they don't bring that up ever.
Freddie and the only makes a very good point.
Who?
Freddie's in the chat.
Okay, go ahead.
Our resident legal guy. Mass shootings.
Mm-hmm.
All the mass shootings in this country.
Mm-hmm.
4 have been done by blacks. 1 was done by the Muslim couple in California. We have over 1,000 mass shootings in this country. I don't hear people going, well, that's white on white crime. No, we want to say that guy is mentally unstable.
Yeah.
Because that's the only way we can wrap our heads around how in the hell can somebody be so upset with somebody that they just walk in and start shooting everybody in the building? They must have a mental problem.
Yeah. Or be a terrorist.
Yeah. Oh, we want to go back to stats. 82% of all, was it 82% or 87% of all pedophiles are white guys with an average age of 39 years old.
Right.
But you want to talk about black on black crime.
They only bring up the one stat where they think they can win, and clearly, like, we've shown that you can't win that way. So stay on topic, man. I mean, like here's the thing. If you really want to have this argument that more white people are being killed by police than black people, why aren't you outraged about that? Why are you okay with white people being killed by the police? I don't get it. Like, why are we supposed to hear that stat and go, oh, well, the cops are killing everybody, it's all good? Like, how is that your argument? I don't get that. I never understand why it's, oh, black people shouldn't be mad about cops killing them and not getting any jail time for it, because cops kill everybody and don't get jail time for it. How is that okay? And how does that prove that nobody's racist? I don't understand.
It doesn't.
Exactly.
It doesn't. Like, Which is going to bring me to defunding the police, right? Oh, we're not going to have police officers and blah, blah. That's not what defunding the police means, right?
Yeah.
Defunding the police means that the police aren't going to have tanks, right? Defunding the police means that they're not going to have more automatic weapons. Defunding the police means that we're going to use people who are trained in certain situations to handle those situations instead of police. If there's a domestic abuse situation there, we're going to have a counselor there, somebody who can talk to people and de-escalate a situation as opposed to creating more of a problem.
Right.
When there's somebody involved with a drug crisis, right? Yeah. We're not going to. The police will be there, of course, because they may get violent. But that's not going to be the first option for the police to agitate somebody who's already on drugs. We're going to have drug counselors there who know how to handle people who are on drugs.
So remember that guy a few years ago in Florida? He was a mentally ill guy, and he was doing something. They called the police on him, and when the police get there, his therapist or his counselor or his caretaker, it was a black guy who was.
Hang on, I'm sorry. I got to get back to Troy again on this, because my blood pressure is going up, and I don't know. He says it's not racism; it's social economic issues. There are a lot of social economic issues here,
right.
but a lot of that is created by the systematic racism in this country. And he says, how about solutions? Why complain about history? Why don't you, as a white guy, stop complaining to me that there's not fucking racism and go and do something to help the situation?
Right. Where are your solutions?
What are your solutions?
Yeah. Instead of telling us to shut up.
Where's your help? Right.
Instead of telling us to shut up about the problem, where's your solution?
Where's your solution?
Yeah, exactly.
And this is why it becomes a you and a me problem, right? Because, you should go find a solution. Help me find a solution.
Right.
Come up with an idea.
Exactly.
Come on the show and discuss it with us.
So a few years ago in Florida, right? There was a guy, he had some sort of I can't remember if it was a physical disability or just a mental disability. And his caretaker or his therapist or whatever who came to help him out was a black guy. And in the meantime, after this guy shows up, the police show up. And I remember this guy was laying in the street. He was laying down, had his hands up, and he was shot by a cop. Right?
Because he was, I meant to look up his name because there was a kid who was autistic, and he was playing with the truck, and he wouldn't put down the truck. He was playing with the fire truck.
Right.
And he wouldn't put it down. He was sitting on the ground, and the police had the gun.
Right.
The social worker walked out there. He had his hands up.
Yeah.
He was trying to protect this kid who's autistic, who doesn't understand what the police are doing.
Right.
He doesn't understand that they're telling him to put down this toy.
Right.
He goes down. He's laying on the ground. The black
guy.
Social worker. He's a social worker.
Yeah.
He's laying on the ground. He has his hands in the air, and he's begging them to not shoot this kid because the kid is autistic. He does not understand.
And then the cop shoots him.
Right. And kill him.
And so this is where the whole defunding the police,
because you send
the
somebody
police
out
would
there,
have never shown up to shoot somebody.
Right.
So instead of the police showing up,
there would have been somebody there who understands how to deal with autistic people.
Right.
And that person would have been there also, so there wouldn't have been any shooting because that person would understand how to talk to autistic kids.
Exactly.
Right? They understand that not all autistic kids are the same. Right.
And
so they know those safe zones and those how to react to them when they do things, and they understand that those kids aren't a threat, but they feel threatened, and there's a difference, right? When you feel threatened, especially when you're autistic already and you don't know what's going on, the police aren't helping the situation anymore, right? Pulling out a gun on a kid who's autistic, sitting on the ground, he's freaking out already. Charles Kinsley was the social worker. Thank you, Gina. He just went and laid down on the ground, put his hands in the air, and he's begging them not to shoot this kid. And he's explaining to him he's autistic. He does not understand.
And it's easy when you're not a black person to say, oh, all these problems don't exist because they're not happening to you.
Right.
They're not happening to people you care about. They're not happening to your brothers, your sisters, your fathers, your cousins, your uncles, your kids. I mean, it would be like me complaining about how basketball players don't get any privacy. I've never been a professional basketball player. How would I know that? How would I know how serious that issue is? How would I know that it could be like a career damaging incident could happen just by LeBron James going to Walmart without his security guards? Like, people don't understand. There are people that love LeBron and hate him, but when the mob swarms him the minute he walks into Walmart, bad things could happen. But I could never understand that because I've never had that amount of celebrity. I don't make $100 and some odd billion a year where everybody wants, it would be nice, but I don't. So I don't understand. The thing is, I don't pretend to. And if somebody complains about that, I'm mature enough to say, you know what? I don't get that problem. But if he's saying that's a problem, I mean, man, I'm listening. I have compassion for people, sympathy, empathy. Like, I care. Like, I don't understand. I don't understand. Like to the people out there like this, what happens if you win this argument? Then what? So if you prove to me that there is no racism, then what? Then what? All the police are going to stop killing people? Black, white, whatever?
Well, he just puts a thing.
You know what I'm saying?
He's like, the problem with law enforcement is that they have been militarized, no more officer friendly. That's what we say all the time. He's like, It's not. This is all a problem for all of us. We say that every day on this show. That the problem is the police officers. Defunding the police is a good thing because they won't be militarized anymore. They don't. Why does the police department need a tank? Or five? And you know what? I might even give you one tank, to be honest with you, right? Like, for a police department. But why do you need 8, 9, 10 tanks?
Yeah.
I found an article a while back. I was searching something, and there's like a town in Ohio that has a population of like 1,300 people, and they spent half their budget on a tank. What the hell do you got 1,300 people, and you have we have a National Guard and a military for a reason, right? Like, if it comes to the point where you need a tank, I want people who train in the tank all the time.
Remember when in Dallas there was the black guy who was I know he was I think he was a veteran of the military, and he started shooting the police like he was a sniper or something, you know?
Yes.
And then they got him pent up in a car garage, and they sent basically
Dave Chappelle talks about this in 846.
They sent the robot into the garage and literally blew this guy up. Like, I mean, think about that. They blew up an American citizen. Maybe he was a criminal. Maybe he was a murderer. Maybe he was a bunch of things. But we are so desensitized to this. They blew this man up. Like you don't send in a little robot with a bomb attached to it and blow somebody up when you meant to find justice.
Yeah.
Like, when you kill a police officer, like, that's where this went to, right? Dylan Roof killed 9 people in a church, 9 black people. They took this man to get cheeseburgers. But when one of these guys, when anybody goes and he starts killing cops,
you blow them up.
They send him and they send a bomb in there to blow him up.
You blew him up.
And we're so desensitized to this. Nobody batted an eye. This was everywhere. They had everything except the video of the actual bomb going off or him blowing up. But you can see a little robot going into the garage. There's a boom. Yep, we got him. He's dead. Nobody batted an eye. Nobody thought, man, hold up. The police just blew a dude up. Nobody cared.
I'm sure Troy got his feelings hurt. He's not watching anymore. But we're going to switch service because I want to talk about racism in America. I'm really tired of talking about racism in America. I really am. I want, like, next week, we're going back to doing our own shows where we just talk shit about people and celebrities and all that stuff. Right?
Yeah, celebrities are actually people are starting to go places and do stuff again. So we're starting to see people do stupid stuff. So we can talk about regular stuff.
So we've talked on this show before because we talked about it when Kobe passed. We talked about it with Michael Vick about when you do something bad, how long until you can say that's my past.
Right.
So Mark Wahlberg got drugged last week on Twitter because he just hashtag Black Lives Matter. And then people went in on him. I feel like I might have known this, but I didn't think about it. I'm not a big Mark Wahlberg fan, right? He's not one of those guys like, if there's a Mark Wahlberg movie, like, it's not like,
it's cool.
Right. Yeah. If it comes on TV, I'll watch it.
Right.
But like, I'll go out and see a Leonardo DiCaprio movie or a Denzel or Tom Hanks movie. Like, I'll go.
Mark Wahlberg is always like just neutral to me. Like, he's cool. Like, he makes some good movies, bad movies, but yeah, I don't know a bunch. I don't love him or hate him, you know?
Right. I mean, and I don't think I've ever met him, but I may have in my years of radio. But so this is crazy. And what reason people went in on him was because, like, this guy's talking about Black Lives Matter now, but his Wikipedia page actually has a section called hate crimes.
Wow.
Yeah. So in 1986, when Mark Wahlberg was 15 years old, he and 3 friends chased 3 black children while yelling, "Kill the nigger, throwing rocks at them. The next day, Wahlberg and others followed a group of mostly black 4th graders. Now, mind you, he's 15. These are 4th graders. So what? 4th graders like 9, 10 years old, maybe?
Yeah.
8 to 10 years old.
Yeah.
They were on a field trip to the beach, and they yelled racial epithets at them, and then threw rocks at them, summoned other white males to join in to their harassment. In August 1986, civil action was filed against Wahlberg for violating civil rights of his victims, and the case was settled within a month. Okay. In 1988, Mark Wahlberg, again, he was then 17 years old, assaulted a middle-aged Vietnamese man on the street, calling him Vietnam fucking shit. Knocking him unconscious with a large wooden stick, Wahlberg attacked the second Vietnamese man later the same day, punching him in the eye. When Wahlberg was arrested and returned to the scene of the first assault, he told the police officers, "I'll tell you now that motherfucker whose head I split open. I'll tell you now that's the motherfucker whose head I split open." Investigators also noted that Wahlberg made numerous unsolicited racial statements about gooks, slant-eyed gooks. Wahlberg was charged with attempted murder, pleaded guilty to felony assault, and was sentenced to 2 years in jail, but served only 45 days. Wahlberg believed he had left the second victim, his name was Johnny Trin, permanently blind in one eye, but Trin said that he was actually lost his eye during the Vietnam War while serving for the South Vietnamese Army alongside American troops. There's 2 incidences, right?
Right.
Then in 1992, Wahlberg fractured the jaw of his neighbor, a guy by the name of Robert Crehan, in an attack. Court documents state that in 1992, Wahlberg, without provocation or cause, viciously and repeatedly kicked Crehan in the face, while another man, Derek McCall, held the victim to the ground. McCall is black, the guy that helped him, and their excuse on this one was that the guy called McCall a racial slur, and that's why they jumped him. In 2006, Wahlberg said the right thing for him to do was to meet Trin and make amends, though he had not done so. In 2016, while requesting a pardon for his conviction on the assault of Trin, Wahlberg said he had met with Trin and apologized for his horrific acts. Trin released a public statement forgiving Wahlberg. So Wahlberg tried to get this removed from his record. One of the black kids that he opposed the pardon, saying once a racist, always a racist. Judith Bills, who was the prosecutor in some of the cases, argued that Wahlberg has never acknowledged the racial nature of his crimes, and the pardon would undermine Wahlberg's charity work, saying a formal public pardon would highlight all too clearly that if you are white and a movie star, a different standard applies. Is that really what Wahlberg wants? And then he did not show up for the rest of the cases and didn't go on the pardon. So we've talked about this Kobe Bryant and the rape thing, like Michael Vick and all the things he's done after the dog conviction. Right. Should we still hold that over his head?
I think all these things are different. I think when you have the facts of a case or something that's somebody, like, I think, let me try to give an example. So bringing up Kobe, right? I think once all the information finally comes out, you realize, you know what? Kobe didn't rape that girl.
At least it was very questionable. It was
very questionable circumstances where it's like, you know what? At best, we have a 50-50 situation where it's maybe he did, maybe he didn't, right? But with all the evidence that came out and the circumstances and kind of with just the way we believe things, for the most part, most of us don't believe that he raped somebody, right? So time goes on, you do better. There's never been another incident. You know what I mean? Like, there's not been 15 women came out and was like, oh, Kobe raped me, and all of this, right? So at that point, you move on and you say, you know what? I have to give Kobe the benefit of the doubt here, even if there was not enough evidence or whatever to completely exonerate a person, right?
But there was never enough evidence to convict him either. Like, there was
right. That's what I'm saying. Like, there was not a conviction.
Right. It's middle of the road here.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think, like, bringing in something more, even more relevant. You say like Mike Tyson, right? Very comparable to the Kobe situation, where he takes this is Mike Tyson goes out on a date with this woman. They go to a hotel, whatever. And then the next day she says, oh, he raped me, right? So have we heard of any other incidences of Mike Tyson acting that way? You know what I'm saying? Like, so at some point people move on from their crimes, right? Like they made a mistake. They did something wrong or allegedly did something wrong. And Mike Tyson's case, you could say, well, he went to prison for it. So I guess he did it, but we can forgive him and we can move on at some point, right? Michael Vick is completely, I think, different from those situations because it didn't involve a human. So let's just say, without argument, that Michael Vick was 100% abusing animals and convicted of animal cruelty. He did his time. He has rehabilitated himself since then, right? It cost him more money than most people will ever make in their entire lives, right? He went to prison. He did his time. You got to do 80% of your federal time, right? So he did all of his time. Since he's gotten out, he rehabbed himself. He got his job back. He did everything that a reformed criminal is supposed to do, right?
He has done charity work for PETA and all these other,
exactly,
I don't know
right?
PETA specifically, but for these animal organizations, he's given a large amount of money. He's apologized for his crimes. He's gone on and done other things for the community that have been great. So at some point, you're like, Mike's paid his time.
Right. You know what I mean? So in those situations where you say, okay, this guy committed a crime and he went to jail for it, he got out of jail or wherever it may be, or he was found not guilty or whatever it is. But since then, he has not done it again. He's been on a straight and narrow, basically,
and there's something
right?
that I think that to me that's different from those cases than this case, and that's remorse.
Exactly. And that was exactly where I'm going next is with all those guys after the incident, they're on a straight and narrow. They're walking a clean path, right? In this case, and I didn't even know about these things Marky Mark did until today, right? So looking at this, he's a repeat offender. One of them is kind of questionable with, it was him and a black guy that beat up another guy, you know what I mean? But in the same instance, where's the remorse? Where is the, you know what, I messed up, I'm not going to do that again. You know what I mean? Like where is the,
not only
man, I need to make amends here, you know?
Not only was there no remorse for the first one, on the second one, when the cops arrest you and you're standing there, you're still calling the guy racial names.
Yeah, I did it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah,
right.
I did it.
Yeah.
Basically.
I'm proud of it. Yeah, I did it. So there's a pattern, right?
Yeah.
It's to me, so like, just so people don't think it's because Mark Wahlberg's white, let's go to Bill Cosby, right? There's a pattern in Bill Cosby's history.
Right.
Right? Bill Cosby got on Larry King and bragged about put the little thing in the drink and it and whatever.
Yeah.
So I know it's a horrible Cosby, but we all get the point. So there's a pattern. And I don't know that at any point Bill just denied. I don't remember him ever being remorseful about anything.
I don't think you can do something and then deny you did it and be remorseful at the same time.
Fair. R. Kelly,
you know what I mean?
R. Kelly, R. Kelly,
dude,
right?
I'll never understand anybody who supports R. Kelly when he's literally on video being a pedophile and all he's ever done is say, I didn't do that. That's not me.
Right.
People are just making up all this stuff about me.
It's kind of like cops on the police shootings, right? Oh,
yeah.
That's not what you see is not what you see.
Yeah. That's not what happened.
Yeah, no. She was. I mean, I was just peeing. I didn't realize she was under me.
The craziest thing in the world is the Aaron Hernandez doc. When everybody and their mama who saw this documentary sees Aaron Hernandez go into a closet and pull out his gun, except his girlfriend.
I don't know.
She's the only one in the world who was like,
I can't tell what that is.
I can't see. I can't. It's too blurry.
Yeah. No.
Now look, that's what I want my boo to do. Hey, if I'm on camera blowing somebody's brains out. And my woman sees it, she better be like, I can't tell if that's him or not. It's too blurry. I don't know.
I don't think that guy's the right shade of black.
Yeah, he ain't the right, kind of close, but it ain't my boo.
Yeah, no.
I mean, that's what you want in your corner.
Right.
But let's be real, though. At some point, like look, I think, and another thing, like, shout out to Dave Chappelle. Another thing that he said is like, look, you get, did he, how many times can a person be accused? Like, did he rape 50 women? I don't know. But like, you get to 10 and it's like, 10? Okay. And then it's 20? Like, At some point, he had to do something.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, all these people aren't just coming out saying he did it. It's that if you watch the Jeffrey Epstein documentary, at some point, like, all these women can't be lying. All these people who come out with the same story in the same scenario, and these people are not connected, and they're talking to different police agencies all over the country and the world, for that matter, about this same person doing the same thing.
They have the same story. Almost.
Yeah, they all have basically the exact same story, the same experience of doing the same things. At some point, it's like, you know what, bro? Like,
R. Kelly probably did this.
Can you? Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, you had to do this. But that's not, and that's the thing with Mark Wahlberg here, which is really weird because he at no point is he even denying that any of this stuff happened. He's just like, yeah, it is what it is.
We only got a few minutes left, but so I was watching this show called The Ranch on Netflix. It's done by the guys who did that 70s show. It's got Sam Elliott, Ashton Kutcher, and Danny Masterson was a part of the show until the 5th season. And in the 5th season, he was written out of the show. And the reason he was written out of the show is because 15 years prior to this, he was accused of 4 counts of like sexual assault. The police investigated. They decided there was nothing to prosecute. And it was over with, right?
Right.
15 years later, somebody brings this back up. So they write him out of the story. It's one. So like, there's and in that 15 years, there was never any other incidents, right? There was never any other like, oh, he had this type of this or that, something similar, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how much like does he deserve to be written out of a show because of something that happened in 15 years that there were no criminal charges for?
I don't think people,
and there's no history after that.
It's a tough situation and it's very sensitive, especially if there's a victim, to any kind of crime. But I don't think one accusation of anything should cause a person to lose their job, especially when it's just an accusation at that point.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And
like
again,
that's
pretty.
Not only
that's
was
pretty
it an
harsh.
accusation,
but it was something that was investigated by the police, and the police were like,
"Yeah,
we don't have enough here."
Right.
Right. Like,
because at this point, you can just pull up. I can just say, you know what? Denzel Washington molested me when I was 5, and then now Hollywood just cuts him off, and he can never get another job again because I just made something up.
Right.
That's,
and I'm not saying that
harsh.
somebody made this up, and I'm not saying there wasn't an accusation there,
of course,
or something. Sexual assault and sexual harassment are like these fine line things, right?
Right.
Because if I slap a woman on her ass, that could technically be sexual assault, right?
Right.
But the girl I was talking to yesterday might like it when I slap her on her ass, but I don't know the girl I'm talking to today doesn't like it.
Exactly.
So, and if you have a right to be offended by that. The second one has a right to be offended by me slapping on her ass, and she doesn't want to be slapped on her ass.
Right.
Right. And the story I read didn't give a lot of details to what was the allegation of what he did to sexually assault or harass these people.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, he was a really good character in the show, and I was kind of mad that they wrote him out of the show, and I was like, why would you, like, he's like one of the 3 main characters in the show. I was like, why would they do that? Then I Googled it, and I was like, that doesn't seem fair.
Yeah.
Right? Like, he's not only a member of the show. Is there a time limit? Like, there has to be, I feel, some type of guideline.
I mean, legally, you have statute of limitations, but I mean, in the public opinion, it's whatever people choose to be mad about or have their zero tolerance policies against. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's always going to be personal. And like I tell people all the time, man, look, you're allowed to feel however you want to feel. But when we start introducing facts, your feelings are going to be overridden by the facts every single time.
Right.
You know what I mean? So you can argue with me all you want and give me your feelings about how racism doesn't exist or how Kobe Bryant is a rapist and all these other things. But at the end of the day, like, here are the facts. You know what I mean?
And so, like, they also asked Masterson, like, how he felt about being the way they wrote him out of the show and everything. He's like, no, it was great. And he's like, please continue to support the show. I've worked with these guys from Sybil, and then I was on the 70 shows with them. These guys are great people. Please don't stop watching the show because of accusations made against me. Please support the show. Like, he was very humble and his response to it.
Yeah.
And his only comment about the accusations that he would make was like, this was 15 years ago. The police investigated this, and they found that there was no reason for charges to be brought up.
Yeah. What else is he supposed to say?
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's all he said.
Yeah, exactly.
He didn't say this person's a lying piece of blah, 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 or whatever. It's a scam, whatever.
Right.
So there's got to be some type of, there's got to be something, right? Like where we can't go back and destroy people's lives anymore. Like these Twitter things, like, there's so many, like.
Yeah.
Next week, we'll talk about people being canceled for Twitter posts they made years ago.
Right.
I can't even say my name. Like, wow.
Don't die on me, man. Like, we survived the quarantine. Don't die now.
Up, Dallas Scott, Hollywood Huff, Quan, the producer. This is Negro Please. We'll be back next Monday at 5 p.m. Please make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, everything. It's The Negro Please. Thanks again for watching, guys.